Hi guys, I'm Olivier and this is my review of the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. I'll save you the trouble to hear me enumerate all the specs of the camera. I'd rather share with you my personal experience with it. During this review you'll be able to watch random footage taken with the camera, graded with only a curve and a bit of saturation so you can judge the basic color science better, and not with an infamous orange steel LUT or a film convert look applied on it. If you fall asleep watching my review, it's totally fine, as it can also be used as an ASMR video. Let's start off with the first impressions that I had when I unboxed the camera. What struck me when I took the camera in my hands for the first time was the build quality. It hurts me to say that because I love Blackmagic cameras, but it feels cheaply made. The body is made out of carbon fiber, which is supposedly kind of rugged, I guess, but this one is not of the best kind. At least it doesn't feel so. It feels more like plastic than the carbon fiber you'd find on an Alexa Mini, for instance. I know it's not a fair comparison. I may be a very cautious person when it comes to gear, but every time I got the camera out of my bag, I was afraid to scratch it. I wouldn't feel confident bringing the camera on a shoot with tough conditions, or if it had to be handled by someone I don't trust. I bought the camera at a rental company and they're planning to rent it. I can't imagine how the camera will end up after a few months of hard use on pro sets. The buttons have a not so enjoyable tactile feedback, they're too soft for me. The dial is also too loose. All this contribute to this cheap feeling you have when you first lay your hands on the Pocket 4K. It's a shame because the button layout is very well thought out. The ergonomics are just great. The grip is large enough, the touchscreen is big and very responsive. You can access many functions either with a physical button or quickly with a touch. The screen brightness isn't outstanding but manageable in most situations, except for bright sunlight. The color accuracy, not perfect but okay. In a nutshell, it's the same screen as the 5-inch video assist, which isn't too bad for the price. The camera OS is, simply put, the best on the market. It is a breeze to use. That being said, I'm not a huge fan of the overall look of the camera. I would have preferred different form factor, like an FS5 for example, but it's okay. I just regret that the build quality is not on par with the previous Blackmagic cameras. When the camera was announced, the battery life was one of my biggest concerns. And I must say it's not too bad. I haven't precisely measured how long a battery lasts, but on the feel I wasn't annoyed as I've been in the past with the old Pocket. Painful memories. But you still have those Blackmagic bugs. The battery indicator is all over the place. You boot up your camera, it's at 100%, 2 minutes later it's at 55, and 10 minutes later you're at 2. I actually shot for at least half an hour at 2%, so yeah, not that precise. And I've yet to test the battery life with a stabilized lens. I guess it would take a hit. But I can see myself using the camera without an external battery, which is a must when you call yourself a pocket camera. Speaking of bugs, I had the camera freeze once or twice on me. Impossible to turn it off. I had to remove the battery, wait a few seconds and put it back in. And also a few times the SD card wouldn't be recognized by the camera. Not a big deal, but always a bit embarrassing. I haven't experienced the high-pitched noise some people talked about online. I'm sure all of this will be addressed by Blackmagic in future firmwares. Let's talk about the important part now. Image quality. Once again, my first impression was a tiny bit underwhelming. I don't know whether it was because we're so used to great cameras now, or because I started to shoot ProRes and not RAW, but I wasn't mesmerized by the image while reviewing my first footage. I thought it had no distinctive mojo, whatever that means. Maybe it had to do with the image being too clean in ProRes, which, don't get me wrong, is a good thing. But I've never seen an image so clean, almost like it had been denoised. But I feel the big difference between cameras with H.264 codecs and the other with raw or true uncompressed signals is the texture, the noise you get from an unprocessed or lightly processed signal. But don't be afraid, it's a different story with RAW, and I'll get to it soon. The first day I shot in film mode and used the extended video LUT on my ProRes footage, and the results were so-so. The colors weren't vibrant, the image had a brownish-greenish hue. It looked a bit like if you tried to color correct an S-Log2 S-Gamut image without a Rec 709 LUT applied beforehand. I think it was mostly due to the white balance being a little off, as well as the extended video LUT that wasn't giving me the best results. The use of vintage glass with an ND filter and all the foliage in the shots might also have been responsible for this green tint I got this first day of shooting. So naturally I shot RAW the next day to be able to white balance precisely in post. And let me tell you, the image was stunning. Not that you can get beautiful results with ProRes, but you really have to get your white balance right. With RAW you get subtle grain, yet still a very clean image. It is more organic and very detailed, but not too sharp. With no effort, you can get an image with rich and natural colors. Very similar to Canon, even with the reds being a little too hot sometimes. But it is just gorgeous. Generally, I judge a color science with 3 markers: the color of the sky, the color of the foliage, and the skin tones. All 3 are so pleasant to my eyes. The mojo's back, guys. And if you don't like the colors, well, in RAW it's not much of a problem. You can tweak everything to your liking. The image is so flexible in terms of color and dynamic range, which I'll talk about later. The Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K has 2 big features. The first biggest selling point is the ability to shoot RAW, more specifically compressed RAW. The thing with RAW, especially in 4K, is that it takes space, a lot of space, and it doesn't make sense to get a cheap camera if you end up buying very expensive cards and dozens of hard drives that will cost you 10 times the price of the camera. When you shoot RAW, you enter an ecosystem and you have to be aware of the cost of it. But not so much anymore. With 4:1 compressed RAW and furthermore with the soon-to-come Blackmagic RAW, you're actually able to record 4K RAW to your basic SD card. No need for CFast card anymore. Blackmagic RAW will be a game changer. To me, the other killer feature of this camera, which has been quite overlooked by everybody since the Pocket's announcement, is the ability to record custom baked in LUT. What it means is that you can actually turn your camera into any camera you want, like an open source camera if you will. How does it work? You take a clip in film mode, you grade it in resolve to your liking. You can transform red to purple, desaturate shadows, warm up highlights, you name it. You generate a LUT from your grade, you import it to the camera with an SD card, and voila! You can use this LUT either as a simple monitoring LUT, or you can directly record your footage with the LUT applied. So useful for fast turnarounds or simple projects. Theoretically, depending on your grading skills, you can make the camera look like a Fuji camera, a Canon camera, or a Sony. It's unbelievable. It opens endless possibilities of color profiles or picture styles. When I watched the first footage online, I was worried about the dynamic range of the camera. There was a lot of clipped highlights. I also read on many forums from people who actually never used the camera that there was less dynamic range and the image wouldn't be like the good old Pocket. So I tried for myself and shot the same thing with my old Pocket Cinema Camera and the Pocket 4K. And to my surprise, I think the 4K has more dynamic range than the old Pocket camera. The shadows are cleaner on the new Pocket and by a fair amount. Talking about noise, how is the low light performance? Well, ISO 3200 is completely usable. At 6400 in RAW, I started to notice fixed pattern noise in dark areas. But with noise reduction, you can easily get away with it. And the problem is less obvious when you shoot ProRes anyway. Overall, the low light performance of this camera is very impressive and definitely good enough for what I do. I won't spend much time talking about the Full HD quality. It is very good, very detailed, similar to the old Pocket but with less artifacts. The Blackmagic Pocket 4K can do up to 120 FPS in Full HD windowed mode. You can switch to HFR mode in the push of a button, so convenient. The quality of the slow motion is pretty good, but you can get occasional moire depending on what you shoot. In 4K though, moire almost completely gone, which is great news. I still wish Blackmagic put a low pass filter in their camera so you can shoot in any mode with complete confidence, even if it means paying more for the camera.
Bonjour, ceci est un petit test son de la caméra Blackmagic Pocket 4K. On teste les micros internes et aussi les préamps. Donc voilà, qu'est-ce que je peux vous dire? Si ce n'est que ça fait du bien d'entendre un peu de français, non? Allez, au revoir. Bonjour, ceci est un petit test son de la caméra Blackmagic Pocket 4K. On teste les micros internes et aussi les préamps. Donc voilà, qu'est-ce que je peux vous dire? Si ce n'est que ça fait du bien d'entendre un peu de français, non? Allez, au revoir.
The camera has two internal mics on the front of the body. Their quality is poor and they're right next to the fan, so I wouldn't use it anyway. The preamps are okay for a simple interview or something where sound isn't critical. For anything else, I'd record sound externally. All in all, it's definitely a Blackmagic camera, meaning you get an incredible image at an unbeatable price, but with a few quirks that can be a deal breaker for some. To name a few, the battery life isn't that great, the battery itself doesn't fit easily in the battery compartment. More generally, the build quality of the camera isn't good enough. Although very clean, the image can show moire because there's no low pass filter. There's also a problem with reds clipping harshly, especially in ProRes. But the image is just the best you can get under $8,000, and the only one competing would be the Ursa Mini Pro. I can't stress enough how clean, flexible and beautiful the image is. For those afraid of not having the old Pocket feel, well, just use a vintage lens, slap on a Black Promise filter, crop into the image and shoot at 3200 ISO and you'll get your image back. And again, for those who have never shot with it, I can assure you that the new camera has more dynamic range than the old one. Basically, it's like having the best mirrorless image out there, but without the compression artifacts and with more flexibility. Some would argue it looks too close to what I get with my S7 III, and it's true, but it says more about the outstanding image quality of your Sony than the other way around. Still, I hope Blackmagic will address those issues I mentioned before with a firmware update, because it is simply unacceptable for professional use of the camera. I also wish they add a second step in magnification to focus with more confidence, even though their picking is one of the best. In the future, I also hope Premiere will be able to handle RAW files, because I think ACR does a slightly better job at deburring DNGs than Resolve. Who is this camera for? I think this camera would suit well independent filmmakers on a budget, or a growing video company with from time to time bigger projects like TV or web ads. It's also the perfect crash cam for cinema, and of course a very enjoyable and affordable tool for passionate of imagery and color grading such as me. I guess you could also buy one if you're an aspiring director or DP and you want to shoot a top quality short movie for your reel. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch my very long yet incomplete review of the Blackmagic Pocket 4K. If you have further questions, please leave them in the comment section below. I might do other videos with the camera if you ask me to. I'll try to shoot a project with it soon anyway. Please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel if you want more of this. Thank you and au revoir!